Do tigers and lions have the same fighting techniques since they are built similarly? This subject can never be brought up without fans from either side vehemently cursing whatever view or opinion that is put forth. I have learned to stay clear of this argument because even taking the middle ground and saying it's a toss-up is sure to get as many attacks as if I'd chosen a side. More, in fact, because then I get it from both sides. Quite silly, really. But since this particular question does not ask for a who would win answer, I feel safe in simply putting forth some facts on the differences between the two fighting styles without giving my conclusion as to which is superior to the other. Although, first let me make it clear that these facts describe the situation on average, or most commonly. They are not absolute, as each individual cat will react differently, depending on circumstances. So, these are generalizations of what is most likely. Also, and very importantly, these descriptions are not necessarily relating to a fight between a tiger and a lion. These are fight characteristics of any battle, which in almost 100% of the cases will be fights between two tigers or two lions. Having said that, they would also be relevant in the odd, rare, and most likely artificially induced case of a lion and a tiger taking each other on. Therefore, with all that in mind, let us begin. By far, the main difference is the stance. Lions fight with 3 paws on the ground. Tigers fight with 2 paws on the ground. This fact is the basis of why you'll often hear that lions are like boxers, swiping, punching with their 4 paws, and tigers are like wrestlers, grappling with their 4 paws. At any given moment during a battle, you are likely to see a lion with either one of its paws swiping at his opponent while the opposing paw is firmly planted on the ground. And you are likely to see a tiger standing on his hind legs with a choice of swiping with either his left, his right, or grasping with both. This trait is inherent in the two species. Tigers go high, lions go low, generally speaking. Tigers are more agile, as their weight is more spread out throughout their body. Lions are more top-heavy, having a larger percentage of their weight in the front half of their body. You can see how this is related to what I wrote above, where the tiger tends to fight with front paws off the ground, and the lion tends to stay semi-grounded in front. The lion, due to a heavier front end, tends to move his head side to side, boxer-like, in trying to avoid getting swatted, because it often keeps one front paw on the ground. The heavier front end would require a larger expenditure of energy to keep moving his entire front end. Therefore, he moves his head as a defensive maneuver to dodge incoming hits or attacks, boxer-like. The tiger, being more agile and lighter on the front end, tends to move his entire front end up and down, forward and back, like a wrestler looking for an opening to make a takedown move. You can observe both of these methods in human boxing and MMA. The boxer bobbing and weaving his head side to side, dodging punches. The MMA fighter moving his whole body forward and back more to get in and out of range. Tigers are more flexible, allowing them to better make these moves. A tiger spends much of his time during a battle balanced on his hind legs. His sense of balance in this position is quite good. He brings his paws up quite high, and any swipes with both left and right paws are more likely to hit higher, as well as attempts to come in for a bite with his jaws, which is the end goal, if he wishes to kill his opponent. A lion's swipes tend to be lower, shoulder height of its opponent. A lion, if it tries to use both front paws during a battle, will normally sit on his haunches, rear legs crouched, bringing both front paws into the battle with his butt low or even on the ground. Otherwise, it risks being off balance, and possibly knocked over onto his side. Being knocked over is a position a lion tries to avoid at all costs. A tiger, although rarely choosing to lie down on its side, does not lose too much ground if he happens to end up in that position. Like a pet domestic cat whose belly you try to rub, a tiger in the prone position will use both front paws to grasp and its rear paws to try to disembowel its opponent, like your pet cat does to your hand when it plays too rough. A lion will also use his rear paws in this way, of course. But lions take greater care to not let themselves get in this position, and if they do, whatever they do with their hind legs is more of a defensive move, trying to get themselves up on their feet again. Tigers doing this move don't consider it a defensive move, but rather make full use of it offensively, not necessarily trying to get up again as their most immediate concern. A lion often has a mane, and although this is often a point of contention as to how much protection it gives, I'm of the opinion that a mane certainly is no disadvantage, and in the spirit of every little bit helps, it can help protect someone against swipes or bites either way. There is an intimidation factor that the lion makes use of, especially if his mane is particularly large. It's just a psychological thing that is along the same line as how we humans are often told to make yourself look bigger by raising your arms or coat if confronted by certain dangerous wild animals. How much a big old tiger is going to be intimidated is up to interpretation. But still, a lion has stronger, bigger shoulders, but thinner forearms and smaller paws. A tiger has weaker, smaller shoulders, but larger circumference, muscular forearms. This all is related to the fact that lions live on the open plain and often must trot long distances. Tigers live in a more confined, closed-in environment with less need for long treks. Its heavier forearms would be a burden, requiring more energy spent at each footfall. This results in a lion having a quicker swipe or punch, although as I mentioned, it would often only be one paw at a time. This could catch a tiger unawares more often. A lion has a larger heart and lungs, relatively speaking. This tends to give an advantage in endurance. This also relates back to the aforementioned lion's treks across a plain, as opposed to a tiger living in a more closed-in environment with less need to travel long distances. Tigers might tire a bit quicker. Lions are simply more used to fighting, and they have a more aggressive mindset. Living in a pride or alone, wandering amongst prides, they are most likely to get into fights. However, having said that, their fights are less often fights to the death, more often, but not always, just being fights that last long enough to have the inferior combatant retreat. Tigers living alone have fewer fights overall, including less practice. But when prompted, they are all in. This doesn't mean that they always fight to the death, but the common skirmish that lions often find themselves in is not an everyday occurrence. Lions, in those situations, expect the fight to be short-lived, just enough to prove a point. To them, this ritual is part of life and society. Basically, all they do is bitch slap each other, if they can help it. Tigers, on the other hand, do not have this common ritual and go into each fight like it might be their last. They don't want their opponent in their territory. They aren't expecting their opponent to merely back off and show respect. They want their opponent gone or dead. They don't take it lightly. Lions and tigers do not have the same fighting techniques. It does have much to do with certain aspects of their build being different, as I've explained above. It has much to do with the respective physical environments each lives in. Open plain with brush versus thick growth. Much to do with the social environment of each, prides versus solitary, and the types of relationships each builds with those he's most likely to come into contact with. I've not mentioned much about the teeth and jaws of either cat, but they are very much in play the whole time, of course. It's just that there is not much difference between the two in the use of this weapon. Most of the damage that either of these cats inflict on their opponent is done with the claws. The jaws, although used whenever possible, are mainly used at the end. Rarely is there a killing throat hold early in the battle. When big cats like this fight to the death, one-on-one, it is a bit of a battle of attrition. Most of the fight is about putting enough gashes and slashes into the flesh of the opponent to weaken them to a point where a throat hold might be possible. Claw damage can be massive and deep. Obviously, this then hinders use of those muscles. Not to mention the sheer pain and general slowing down of reaction time. It's all about the claws. The jaws and teeth, as terrifying and lethal as they are mostly for the coup de grace. That's why what I've mentioned above about boxing, swiping, grappling, and disemboweling is so important. Gaping slash wounds are really what it's all about for both of these cats. So there you go. I hope I've accomplished my goal of not taking side, but rather just giving the facts about fighting techniques and mindsets of these two awesome beasts. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Wildlife Loft channel right now for more amazing videos like this.